enough, now it's time to listen. Since there ain't no extra cost, you can still pay attention to the knowledge I kick with the simple intent to try to open your mind and feel my pain. Every day I see my people dying, and it's a shame. Wake up, you better check yourself. If you care about your health, then protect yourself. I keep a condom clutched tight in my palm like it's a bomb, defending myself from this war that's going on. Open up your eyes and tell me what you see. I see the strength in the youth stopping HIV. So if you listen to the words that I had to say, don't hesitate, take a test today. So what's going on, everyone? I'm JonKeL, and welcome to the Vibe Connection, where we get to the real deal on real issues in our communities. Now, the topic of today's show is overcoming transgenderism. Joining us today, we have Joseph Zalubchuk, Community Liaison for Project Yes, and we also have writer and artist Raj.
Hi.
Thank you both for coming.
Thank you.
Now, most people aren't very educated about, the transgender population. A lot of people connect being gay and doing the whole drag queen shows with this population. Could you tell them, what's the difference?
Well, basically what I find is that the drag queen type of show is like the stereotype for a transgender person. I'm working on a novel right now, and in my novel the character says, on stage we're queens and we're divine and we're fabulous, but try going to the supermarket like this, then you're a freak of nature. So it's kind of like that double standard, and yeah, a lot of people misunderstand it.
What do you feel?
Recent studies have shown that your sexual orientation is just what makes you attracted to another person, where your gender identity is how you identify as a human being, whether more towards the masculine or more towards the feminine. And your gender identity doesn't necessarily have to correlate with your biological sex, the sex that you were born with. So those are the two distinctions. You can actually be transgender and heterosexual. You can be transgender and gay. They're two distinct components of our human identity.
Okay. Now, what about the image that's portrayed through the media? Is that real?
On some levels it is. However, transgenderism has been exploited a lot. Like, I don't want to name some shows that exploit transsexuals, but there are certain talk shows that you would never see me on. I know they say never, but there are certain talk shows that I don't think I would ever go on, because it's not about, getting on stage to be exploited and scorned and heckled and, laughed at. Transgenderism is real. It's a real feeling. It starts within and it comes out. From a little child, I've been transgender. I may have not looked like this when I was little, but it was in me. It's kind of like, I say it's not on you, it's in you. Even if I took my makeup off and took my earrings and cut my hair, I would still be transgender, because it's in you.
Okay. Well, what's the feel on HIV and AIDS, among the transgender community at this time?
Well, it was funny because Raj and I were just talking about this a little bit earlier, and because being transgender, imagine for a moment that you wake up in the morning and you do not identify with the gender that society tells you. Or you don't know what your gender is. If you don't know what your gender is, you don't know how to relate to the world, because everything in our culture is broken down about male and female and those two roles. Where if you're somewhere caught in the middle, that's such a huge issue for you that things like HIV or cancer or death are like secondary, because if you can't identify your gender, you don't know where you fit in the world. And because of that, a lot of times HIV doesn't get addressed properly in the transgender community.
Yeah, I have to say, you hit it when you said gender. We live in such a genderized world. It's all about gender. It's labeling things. And a transsexual or transgendered person, the things we go through is a reflection of the genderized world that we live in. what is it? Is it a boy? Is it a girl? Forget about what it is. It's a human being. I'm a human being. Before you want to know whether I'm male or female, look at me as a human being. That to me should be the utmost of importance. That should be the major key issue when you're looking at anyone on the planet. Respect them as a human being. Then everything else falls in line.
I just also want to add that they did a study in New York Hospital a few years ago, and they found that the transgender clients in their HIV clinic had the lowest medical compliance out of any group. And the hospital was really worried about this because they respected the transgender population. They wanted them to get adequate HIV care. So what they decided to do was have a transgender support group right at the hospital. And when that started to happen, and the transgender people who had been struggling with these issues for their whole lives finally had a place where they could come and talk about these issues and open up and learn about one another and the latest research findings, their medical compliance went, you know, like up to 90%. You know, they really transformed it. And how they addressed the HIV issue was through meeting this population's needs.
I do outreach work at Pride Line Youth Services. It's a gay, lesbian, bisexual, and transgender center for youth. And I've been doing that for like the last year and a half. And of course, you know, me being a transgender person, I know the issues because I live it every day. But when you get in a group with other transgender people and you start to hear some of their stories, it really compounds. It's like, my gosh, there are some really heavy-duty issues. There's a member of the group, she's, I think, 19, she just turned 19. And she was stopped by the police recently. Now, it was for a tail light or something, and they stopped her. And then so happened she had gotten a ticket like a year ago and had forgot to pay it, so they ended up arresting her. Took her into the jail, and they just basically degraded her. They were like telling her to take off her hair. Well, she couldn't take off her hair because she had a weave. Sew and weave. Take off her nails. She couldn't take off her nails because they were acrylic. Yeah, I mean, you know, things like that. Strip. They wanted to see her her breasts, you know, her tits, and then ended up putting her in a cell with men. Okay, like hardcore men. And of course, in that environment, you're like going to be like, you know, prey. So you know, again, not knowing how to handle it. Okay, maybe we're not complete women, but we're sure as hell. Can I curse? Sure as hell not complete men. Okay.
Now, Joseph, could you tell us what contributions have you and your organization, Project Yes, made in the transgender community?
There's a lot of work that needs to be done on this topic, and the contribution that we're making is education and providing speakers and training to all different kinds of agencies across Dade County and Florida about gender issues, not specifically just with transgender, although we absolutely talk about that. We also talk about intersexuals, which are another population that people don't address and have a lot of stereotypes and myths about.
And what's that one?
A person who is intersex is someone who is born with a biological combination of male and female components. Studies indicate that 1 out of every 100 childbirths is going to have some combination of either hormones or chromosomes or biology that is not our traditional picture of male and female. So Project Yes is accredited by the Florida Department of Health. We provide CEU workshops to LCSWs, LMHCs, clinicians, and other professionals. And we've done training for Dade County, Broward County Public Schools, hospitals. You know, we also do a lot of outreach in the religious community, which also has a lot of fear and concern about this topic. We've done training for the police departments. We are really across the board agency, do training and education.
You know, I attended one of their sessions, and I have to say, as a transgender person, when I left, I felt so empowered, because I think that the key to ignorance is education. You know, that's where ignorance comes from, when you don't understand something. And what they're doing is they're going out there and educating the community, the quote-unquote straight community, on gay, lesbian, bisexual, and transgender issues. Now, the transgender workshop that they presented, it not only gives the state of transgenderism right now, it talks about the world history of transsexuals, We have been around since the beginning of time. There are cultures that there were, like I said, before the 1800s, right, when very stringent socialization came into play. But there are cultures that had transsexual people. The American Indians, for instance, they had transgender people that held high ranks on the tribe and were respected. And you know, so they're all around the world, and even today in India, there is in Bombay. I met a woman from India recently, and she said, "Raj, you don't know how divine you are." She says the Indian people in this particular area that she's from, there's like a sect of transsexual men, and they are like renowned. They're like almost like, I don't want to say worship, but very respected, because they think of it as a holy thing. Like, this person is not only representing one, they're representing male and female together. So they're looking at it from like a divine perspective. You know, it's kind of like the two and one together, and how much more, I mean, we're representing both. And, you know, because it takes both to, you know, to have the world go round. So they look at it from in a divine way. And I'm bringing that up to say that it's all a matter of how you look at things. It's all relative. If people took time out to see the good in someone like me, you know, I think that a lot of the hate crimes would stop.
Can I also add something? There's also not only a history of spiritual, respect towards transgender people, but there's also some scientific evidence to suggest that loosening up the gender rules in our culture actually has a net positive effect on our society as a whole. In 1974, Sandra Bem was a gender researcher, and she found that the healthiest people, who were healthiest, you know, emotionally and psychologically, were people who could pick from a wide, not necessarily transsexual, but people who could choose from a wide variety of gender expressions in their life. So men who were just very rigid and, you know, didn't show emotion, when their kids came along, they couldn't be sensitive and nurturing to their children. But they find men and women who both can kind of span the continuum of gender are actually healthier human beings. So, you know, a lot of people think of this as, oh, it's some fringe thing, but really, we all have a gender. And we all should take a look at how our culture has constructed our gender and see if it works for us.
I say often, I say it's a hard life, but I'm free. I'm free. You see me, here I am. If I was walking around in in some hip-hop gear, my hair short, I would be miserable because it's not me. So I wouldn't shine the way I do. You know, at least when I walk out my house, you see Rajendra. You see me, and I'm being real. It's kind of like, you know, there's a freedom in it, and that's a good thing.
Now, Raj, I see you have some materials here.
Yeah.
And what is this?
Well, actually, I had a book out like a year and a half ago, a book of poetry, and I was on the poetry circuit for a while. And I just finished my novel, like I mentioned earlier.
Okay.
I've always been a creative individual, and what I found is that it's like God's gift to me. That even if like you might not understand my transgenderism, you're going to relate to my creativity. So what I found is that it's been like the link between me and other people.
Could you read?
Yeah, sure. Actually, I had so many, and I didn't know really which one to choose from, but I thought that Dance to the Rhythm would be a good one. And this is basically a poem that talks about us as spirits of the universe and just being free to be who you are. There is a rhythm of time and space. It has a flow of divine pace. Yesterday has gone and tomorrow has not come. The sound we move to is the eternal drum, swaying to the beat of 1 billion years, a second in time to the eternal sphere, like drops of water in a galactic ocean. The dance we do is called the spiritual motion.
Wow.
And I think that that's a testimony because we're all beautiful spirits of the universe.